The life and death of King Herod. King Herod, often referred to as Herod the Great, was one of the most influential and controversial rulers in Judean history. He was born in 73 BCE into an Idumean family that had converted to Judaism a generation earlier under the Hasmonean dynasty. His father, Antipater the Idumean, was an influential advisor to Hyrcanus II, a member of the Hasmonean royal family. Antipater's alignment with Roman interests, particularly Julius Caesar and later Pompey, positioned the family as intermediaries between Rome and the Judean monarchy. By his late 20s, Herod had already demonstrated his political and military skills. Appointed governor of Galilee in 47 BCE, he quickly made a name for himself by suppressing banditry and restoring order to the region. His effectiveness earned him the favor of Sextus Caesar, a Roman official, and this relationship would prove invaluable in his rise to power. During the Roman civil wars, Herod skillfully navigated shifting allegiances, aligning himself first with Julius Caesar, then with Mark Antony, and later with Octavian, who became Augustus Caesar. These alliances paved way for his survival and political ascent. In 40 BCE, the Parthians invaded Judea and installed Antigonus, a Hasmonean prince, as king, and Herod fled to Rome, where he convinced the Senate to appoint him king of the Jews. With Roman military support, Herod returned to Judea and defeated Antigonus, securing his position as king in 37 BCE. One of Herod's most enduring legacies was his ambitious architectural prowess. He embarked on numerous large-scale construction projects that transformed the landscape of Judea. The most famous of these projects was the massive upgrade of the Second Temple in Jerusalem. The temple was adorned with gold and marble, making it a focal point for Jewish worship and pilgrimage. This transformation of the temple earned Herod some goodwill among the Jewish population, despite his close ties to Rome. Beyond the temple, Herod built several other impressive structures, including the fortress of Masada, the port city of Caesarea Maritima, and the Herodium, a massive palace fortress near Bethlehem that also served as his burial site. Caesarea Maritima was particularly notable for its advanced engineering, featuring an artificial harbor and an amphitheater. While he needed Roman support to secure his rule, his close ties to the empire alienated many of his Jewish subjects, who resented Roman interference in their affairs. To manage this tension, Herod adhered to Jewish customs in some areas, while openly embracing Roman culture and politics in other areas. His marital life was far from chaotic. He married multiple times, often for political reasons, and his family dynamics were fraught with conflict. His most famous wife, Mariam Nye, was a Hasmonean princess whose marriage to Herod was intended to legitimize his rule in the eyes of the Jewish population. However, their marriage was plagued by betrayal and jealousy. Herod's paranoia grew over time, leading him to execute Mariam on charges of adultery, charges many historians believe were unfounded. The aftermath of Mariam's death set a precedent for the treatment of his family. Herod's sons by Mariam, Alexander and Aristobulus, were next in line for the throne. However, rumors of their alleged conspiracies against their father led Herod to accuse them of treason. In 7 BCE, he had both sons executed, a move that shocked even his staunchest supporters. Even Herod's eldest son, Antipater, was not immune to his father's suspicion. Once favored as a successor, Antipater was later accused of plotting against Herod. In a final act of familial ruthlessness, Herod had Antipater executed just days before his own death. To the Jewish population of Judea, Herod was a foreigner, an Idumean whose loyalties lay more with Rome than with his own people. His close association with the Roman Empire and his willingness to suppress dissent through violence made him deeply unpopular, particularly among the Pharisees and other religious groups who viewed his rule as illegitimate. By the time Herod entered the last years of his life, his physical health was in rapid decline. According to ancient sources, he was afflicted by a debilitating illness that caused excruciating pain and grotesque physical symptoms, experiencing fever, severe itching, abdominal pain, convulsions, and gangrenous sores. His condition also included symptoms such as breathlessness, swelling, and an insatiable appetite, all of which compounded his misery. He also suffered from insomnia and hallucinations in his final days, haunted by guilt, and paranoia over the many lives he had taken. These episodes of mental anguish likely worsened his condition and contributed to his erratic decision-making. Modern medical scholars have analyzed these accounts and proposed various diagnoses, including chronic kidney disease, intestinal cancer, and Fournier's gangrene, a rare and aggressive infection that causes necrosis of the genital and perineal regions. Despite his declining health, Herod remained determined to control his legacy. His will, which was revised multiple times, outlined the division of his kingdom among his surviving sons. Herod's obsession with control extended to his death itself. Fearing that his demise would be met with celebration rather than mourning, he devised a chilling plan. He ordered the imprisonment of prominent Jewish leaders and decreed that they be executed upon his death to ensure that the nation would mourn. Fortunately, this order was never carried out, as those tasked with enforcing it refused to comply after Herod's death. Herod died in his winter palace in Jericho at the age of 70, and his body was transported to Herodium, the massive fortress palace he had constructed near Bethlehem, which also served as his mausoleum. The death of King Herod the Great in 4 BC was not simply the conclusion of his rule, but the beginning of a tumultuous period that reshaped the political, cultural, and religious landscape of Judea.